welcome to another episode of a Wicked Parley. I am your host, Justin, and this is my fellow co-host, Rose.
Hello! That was a voice crack.
Indeed. So, tonight we're going to be discussing a very, very fun topic, I hope at least, is going to be interesting. We're going to be looking and cracking into a wonderful little post on Tumblr. And that particular little post is going to evolve into a conversation, hopefully, that is entertaining to everyone. And, of course, if comments or questions creep up while we're going through it and going through our stuff, feel free to send them so we can discuss them. With that being said, Rose, do you want to throw up the post?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's see. Alright, so ignore the embedding here. I don't know. Let's see.
It's okay, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's not that important. So
Let's see if I can change the zoom here.
Okay, so what's fascinating about this particular post is just how stupid it is. As you can read from the headline, it's like a woman asks why a guy she turned down didn't try harder. It seems like a great response to some things. Great questions to pose and overall thing to discuss. So hopefully you guys enjoy this particular thing. Before we get too much into this, before we even read the full article and go over everything, I just want to point out a trigger warning. So go ahead and throw a trigger warning up there for everybody. Because the things we're going to be discussing. Yeah, the discussion is going to probably go on to a gray area that I am not going to be happy with necessarily. And hopefully the people are, less negative. So,
Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, who knows?
Maybe.
I mean, before we even read the article, what do you think, Rose? Do you think that, this is going to be, a funny topic to talk about, or is this, going to piss people off?
Well, depending on the life experiences of people, it might piss some people off. Who knows if they've had this type of experience happen to them, or otherwise, I know it pissed me off, and...
Yeah. All right, well, let's jump into that, all right? Let's have you go ahead and read the thing.
Sure, and I made sure to pop out the chat so we can, have the post up while also checking out the comments. By the way, hi, host. Thank you for showing up again.
Yeah, hello, host. It's nice to see you again.
Alright, so this is a Tumblr post starting with Give Me You're Tired. Don't, I already sleep enough.
Yeah, Mr. or Mrs. I nap way too much.
I like my naps. Anyway, let's see. Woman asks why a guy she turned down didn't try harder. Gets the perfect response. Okay.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Hall said, didn't try harder. Just think about this from the cultural perspective of today. Try harder. All right.
I have to imagine this is I don't know which culture this is, actually. Never mind.
I mean, I think that it's pretty obvious that this took place in the West. I mean,
I would assume so, but who knows?
I mean, I'm going to say it's got to take place in the West just because of how dumb parts of it are. There are some really dumb parts.
I mean, the Western culture has integrated itself into quite a number of places, so...
That is very true. That is very true.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Alright, so moving on before we get into the rant, before we even get into the meat of it. Goodness. Alright. A guy invites a girl on a date, tries all of his best moves, but she says no. A guy has to move on, otherwise it's harassment, unless it isn't. Recently, a girl surprised the internet when she posted a question on Quora asking why her date wasn't a mind reader. That alone ticks me off already. Alright. She wrote, a guy asked me out today and I told him no, but I wanted him to try harder. Why didn't he try again? I have a feeling if I don't continue reading, I'm going to explode.
just maybe, but just a pace
just
away
finish
from the
this.
mic.
Yeah.
Just one pace away. A little loud.
Yeah. Alright. Naturally, a question like this deserves something more than a simple answer. An answer that's written in the same language. Luckily, Ron Rule typed a response the inquirer should have understood. Scroll down to check what he wrote.
Okay, so before we even check out what he wrote, let's...
Okay.
let's take a little step back. And
Sure,
let's
sure.
observe the good things. Okay, so a woman was surprised that a guy who goes, "Would you like to go out with me?" You know, does whatever his best moves mean. That could be a whole lot of things. All right, and then she says no. Wonders why. No further pursuit was done. I mean, think about this. I mean, in the wake of all the horror stories that people have told over the last few years, at least the last decade, right? About, asking women out and then doing anything beyond the initial ask gets you immediately restraining orders, the cops called, the whole 9 yards, all right? You get the riot act, more or less. And this woman's like, wait a minute, why didn't he do more? It's like, what exactly was she expecting? Like, that's the thing that I immediately want. Like, I want to find this person, just be like, the fuck are you trying to do? Like, what exactly is the guy you're trying to track down and expect to meet? Because clearly, the guy that you want is either very rare or doesn't give a shit anymore. So
Who knows?
So
I read that. What up?
I was just gonna ask what makes you mad about it, but clearly you're jumping into it, so go for it. Go.
It's pretty much like we've all heard the horror stories. They're everywhere on the internet and whatnot. So having so many of those instances happen, it doesn't surprise me if somebody says a hard no and then somebody decides kind of F it and just doesn't follow the pursuit even if they want to, because in some scenarios the risks outweigh the benefits of such a thing, which we can get into later.
Oh yeah.
I know we have a comment about that later.
Oh,
or
for sure,
a statement.
we definitely
yeah.
do. Yeah.
So it's just I'll cover that later, but in a lot of scenarios the risks outweigh the benefits, and not everybody, wants to get in trouble for something mundane.
I would imagine not. I would very much imagine not.
So it's you would think with all the horror stories out there, if somebody legitimately takes your no as a no, I can't find it in myself to understand why they would be angry or upset about it, because if the other person's protecting themselves because of this no, it's not really a thing that I can see people being angry with. It might just be my life experience, but if somebody's just taking the no as a no, I can't exactly be too mad, but that just might be me.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when it comes down to it, I mean, guys are more often than not placed into the driver's seat of initiating contact more often than not. Okay, if you're talking about and this is of course cisgender guys,
Okay.
Men and women, stuff. I mean, I'm not going to speak to things I don't understand, so I'm not going to say this applies to people who are non-binary. That's the term, correct? Yes, I am correct in this regard.
One of the many terms. There's a lot of terms for people out there.
We're the simple one, okay? It's the straight up one, okay? All right, I'm not going to speak to shit I don't understand. So I'm only going to refer to men and women relationships, because that's what I have experience in.
Okay.
And what I'm going to say is that more often than not, the guy's the one who asked the girl out, right? So the guy's going to deal with rejection way more often than a woman's going to deal with rejection, right?
Okay.
And so, at least from my perspective, right? If a guy gets rejected often, all right, there's some signs that are usually kind of broadcasted, usually body language, maybe a little bit of verbal cues that indicate, hey, she's not interested, moving on. And so this girl, whomever she was, clearly didn't get the memo. Missed the ship, if it were. Also,
it's either that or she might be thinking they're gonna go for it anyway. I don't know.
I mean, perhaps. Maybe the place where she lives. Also, this episode is brought to you by Kirkland.
Not this again!
The people's water.
Hey guys, guess who came back? But yeah, I'm curious as to whether any of the audience has dealt with something like this, but we're gonna cover that in another comment later.
Yeah, so honestly, throw your questions up in the chat, and we will get to them a little bit later in the episode.
we're gonna. If you've got any questions, go ahead and throw them up now. I can scroll up again later.
Yeah,
I'll find them.
We're going through it again, so it'll be alright.
Yeah. All right. So moving on with this thing.
So the comment that the guy made though in response to this particular posting was fantastic. I mean, it was legendary. But let's go ahead and go down to that. Let's have you read that.
Don't you dare, host. Okay. Let's see. Someone surprised Cura with a strange question. Okay, so this is like showing the actual post.
Yeah. It's the actual post. Read kind of
gosh.
it again.
Yeah. Sorry, just trying to figure out like exactly where's the stopping point.
The wrong
All right.
old guy.
Someone surprised Cura with a strange question. A guy asked me out today and I told him no, but I wanted him to try harder. Why didn't he try again? I can't see exactly how much the audience can see. Better. Luckily, this guy responded with an example the Inquirer had to understand. Here we go.
A girl asked me what I wanted for lunch, and I said pizza. But I really wanted steak. Why did she bring me pizza? Do you see how stupid that question sounds? That's how your question sounds. I wish that he, in the thing, it said, that's how stupid the question sounded. Because my God, is it a stupid question? I mean, like, who the hell goes, you know what? I am just going to mentally assume for a second that you're going to instantly know what I want and how I want it without me saying a damn thing. It's like, we're not mind readers. Nobody that I've ever known is a mind reader. And if someone actually does know how to read minds, there's $1 million reward out there. No shit. Like, seriously, it's in Vegas. I forgot exactly.
Wait, what?
Yeah, there is a magician, all right, that's friends with a couple of I forgot the name of all of them, but like it's a special guy. We can find it. We'll put it in the comment section, or I'll mention it in the next episode if anyone cares. But yeah, there's $1 million reward for being able to prove you have psychic powers, and mind reading is a psychic power. Yeah, so all you gotta do is prove you're a mind reader, walk up, go like, I can do this, blah, and then here you go, here's $1 million. It's like, okay. Oh, and I think it's tax-free too, so don't worry. Uncle Sam ain't getting into those pockets. At least the first go around.
Well, okay then. But yeah, I really kind of like this analogy. It turns like a serious situation into something kind of even more English. I only speak it.
Excellent.
Every darn day.
You were harping on me about goofing on words. What's going on?
Oh yeah, you're goofing on words when reading.
Hey, excuse me. I read that excellently. Excellent.
Yeah, after like 5 times.
and also, wow. And also, host, this is no Raid Shadow Legends. No. I hate Raid Shadow Legends. In fact, if Raid Shadow Legends ever tried to be like, hey, we're going to sponsor your podcast, you know what I'm going to do? No. Because fuck Raid Shadow Legends.
Oh my goodness.
And I don't care anyone who likes that. I just don't like it at all. However, if a different game wanted to sponsor the channel, I mean, I'm not going to say no necessarily outright. If I play the game and like the game, then I will, happily receive the endorsement. But I will not take an endorsement of something I don't believe. I don't care how much money is offered to me. Actually, that's not true. I will be a whore for $1 billion. But it's a lot of money and no one wants me that bad.
Oh my goodness. Anyway. Yeah, this one seems more mundane if we're gonna bring it back to the topic at hand. It's just a really simple example that pretty much anybody can understand.
Okay. I agree. No, it absolutely is a pretty simple thing. I mean, like, let me ask you this. What is your favorite part about this particular, response? Like, what's the part that's like, this is awesome?
To be honest, how blunt the last part is. Like, this is a guy that is not afraid to piss somebody off. Because
could've
you
fooled.
know how people get when people call them stupid.
No, I have no idea. I have no experience with that at all. I never called anyone stupid. I mean, it's like 90% of all people. I mean, like, you know, I mean, hey.
All right, moving on before we
just piss off everybody. I mean, that's
Yeah.
kind of the goal at this point, right?
So there's quite a number of small stories here.
Okay.
We're gonna read through a majority of them if they fit the overall story that this Tumblr post is trying to say.
Yeah, and I think you know, I'm gonna give a crack at reading this because apparently I can't read. And I know what I love about these particular responses.
What up?
Most of them are incorrect punctually. Like,
Yeah, I know.
the first one has no period, so we're gonna give this a shot. All right, so the first one is by Malvolus. We're gonna say it. We're hoping.
Malvis.
Hey, that was close enough. That was close enough. I had a girl dump me once. A month later, she started sending me angry texts about how I didn't fight to keep her, and she was only testing me. Now, I gotta ask, you know, if you were dating someone hypothetically, and
Okay.
the person was like, "And we're done now," like out of the blue, as this seems to kind of suggest, what's there to fight for?
I'm not quite sure because it's like if it was a good relationship, you would think it wouldn't end that quickly. For me, I would ask why, and if they give me a good reason, you know what, like maybe fight or at least try to fix things, but I don't know if I'd fight for it.
Okay, like what exactly kind of reason even puts you on the fence? Like,
I'm not even quite sure at this point because there's so many that I'm sure people can think of that I'm not even considering. But if I just want to keep things short, the whole I had a girl dump me once, a month later she started sending me angry texts. If she just dumps me without giving me a reason, do I really kind of want that person in my life? If she doesn't give me a solid reason?
that's kind of was
Or
my
he-
train of thought.
Like, it's just like, you dump me, no explanation at all, you just dump me. It's just, it's a, do I really want this? Like, you can't even give me a reason. It's just, what? Just much confusion. The confused birds going around my head cartoon style, like, what? Excuse me? Hello?
I mean, I'm definitely in the same train of thought with you when it comes to that particular thing. Absolutely. I mean, like, if a person does that, there is absolutely no reason to get back with it because clearly there are large problems at play here that somehow went right over your head. And, oh my god. So, I see there's a comment. Do you want to read it?
Sure. Let's see, host. This happened to a couple I knew. They, quote, got back together, unquote, but things went from bad to worse immediately. Oh no.
I couldn't imagine throwing a live grenade into a relationship and being like, you know what? It's gonna be fine. When it blows up, no one's gonna be hurt. Like, it's...
Oh, what type of bomb is that?
Yeah, I know, right? Like, that's not... I mean, honestly, like, when a person goes, I'm testing you, that's already, in my particular opinion, that's a red flag, all right? Like, that's a red flag.
This,
And a
I
red
can understand
flag-
small tests.
No, period, no.
No, no. I can understand, like, small tests, as in something, like, minor and mundane. Not this, though.
You mean like opening a car door?
I mean, it's small.
Polite gestures?
Yeah, just, like, stuff like that. Nothing huge, like, hi, I want to break up. No reason, just we're done. What?
Okay, all right. So, ladies and gentlemen out there, just so you all know, apparently you now have to be very careful about doors. Yeah, I mean, gotta make sure if you're with a woman, you're opening that goddamn door. Otherwise, she's testing you. I think tests are stupid. I mean, honestly, they're stupid. All right, you either like a person or you don't. You know, if you're looking to find fault with someone, you look hard enough, you're gonna find it. Accept
Yeah,
people
fair.
for who they are. You know, like them or hate them for who they are. Don't test them for all this random bullshit. It's like either like you know you like somebody the first 10 minutes you sit down with somebody, or you don't, and that's really just how it goes. And you know what? Emotions change too. So you know what?
It's how it's supposed to go, at least.
10 minutes from then, you can go, you know what? This guy's kind of an asshole. I'm out of here. You know, or this girl's kind of a bitch. I'm out of here. You know, it's like, okay.
It's like you're supposed to know how it goes. You don't have to. Oh no.
That's right, host. If you will pick the wrong woman or wrong guy, depending on how people swing, I'm assuming you, considering your previous comment, that you swing, for, normal team. And normal team is not a bad way of saying, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna die on that hill.
We're dying on a lot of hills.
Yeah, I'm just taking grenades, rockets all over the place. All right, so point is that, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and here's the thing: if you open the door for some chick and she goes, "Why the hell you do that? I'm a strong, independent woman. I can open it myself." Guess what you just found? An exit strategy.
Oh, pretty much. With reactions like that, you can definitely tell who's got the confidence and, like, essential self-esteem that they know who they are as a person and they don't need to be so big and mighty.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, and honestly, when you think about it, right? A relationship, most of the time, assuming it's a healthy relationship, is a little bit of give and take and a little bit of respecting each other, like their boundaries, who they are, etc., right? Mm-hmm. If a person takes little small subtleties, regardless if they're a big deal or not, and that person truly doesn't like it, what prevents that person from just taking it one time and then later, when it's appropriate, going, hey, I don't really like that. I kind of feel like it doesn't make sense for me. Maybe it's some sort of thing that I don't agree with, but could you please not do that? So that way you are discreetly, in private, told something that is more aligned with what she wants. That way, you don't do it in the future, and you're not being, we'll say, challenged in public.
You would hope that would happen, but just some people have legitimately no self-control.
Yeah, some relationships are just like that, though. I mean, some people are just, they're living, second by second, moment to moment, with no care about other people or really what's going to happen in the future. And because of that, you get people that do dumb things. Kind of like the person in the top of the post. And we're going to keep on going back to that because that was just fucking stupid. All right, the next one is I think Friendly Neighborhood Urologist. Same scenario happened to me a year back. She freaked out. What do you mean? Okay, don't you want to keep me? All right, so it's like, once again, all right, how many times do people expect that you're going to break up, right? You break up with the person and you think, okay, this person is someone I really care about. This relationship is something that matters to me. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do to keep this relationship is by shattering it. It's like, what kind of approach is that? Like, it's almost sociopathic, like in so many ways. It's like, I'm going to try as hard as I can to push you away and see if you keep coming back. And if you keep coming back, then great. Then I know that you're safe. But I'm going to test you and test you and test you until absolutely I'm positive that you're not going to hurt me.
It's like, this is not one of those scenarios where you keep breaking stuff.
I mean, there's a great example of this in movies. Yeah, it's called Darth Vader's life story.
Oh my god!
Like, it's true. This is
it?
Oh yeah. That's so. I mean, like,
alrighty then.
You want an example of why this doesn't work out? Darth Vader, right there. Get Darth Vader. You want to become Darth Vader? Don't do this.
I don't even like the way she really worded that either.
No, I mean, like, honestly, you know what it sounds like? It's a Cali bitch. California bitch.
Like, especially the last part in particular, the whole "don't you want to keep me?" It's just like, are you making yourself an object? Because he's not gonna win no matter what he says.
Yeah, it's a lose-lose scenario. Like, absolutely, the guy. All right, so if the guy takes her back, right? He forces her onto a pedestal, right?
Okay.
And what happens to all things on a pedestal?
They fall down.
Yeah. And the reason why they fall down is because unrealistic expectations are immediately, put on that particular person. And so the moment that patina cracks, it's done. It's kaput. It's over. And so now you have this person who was on a pedestal who's now fallen down, who now feels, hurt, attacked, etc. You name the feeling, and I guarantee you a woman will find a reason to find a way to be that way, like in that circumstance. And it sucks, but it's the truth. And I mean, at the end of the day, what are you going to do in these types of scenarios? I think the only scenario that makes sense is you leave. Because a person who's willing to do that is not a person who cares about you. And so you got to have a strong sense of self and be willing to move on, because those people don't have your best intentions in mind. Or best, thoughts, at least. All right, so the next one was...
No, you said we're skipping that
one.
one.
Skipping that one. All right, and okay, yeah, so this is the Mr. Fortner. My wife does that. Her, you want chicken or salmon? Me, salmon. Her, well, I need to cook the chicken before it spoils. Me, well, why did you ask? Clearly is where it was going, It's like, dot, dot, dot. This is the kind of stupid thing that I think happens a lot of times in relationships. I think some people like to have the idea of choice, and because they have the idea of choice, they think that it's enough. Rather than just being like, hey, we got to do this before this happens. If you want this next time, we'll make it next time. That's the kind of thing, like how you present that. Instead, the woman's thinking, or at least in this situation, I think, is that, oh, hey, I'm going to make him feel like he has say. But really, it doesn't.
I don't really like these types of scenarios either. It's just like, if you're going to present a choice and then completely ignore it, it would have been better to just explain why you were going with the original choice to begin with. At least explain why, rather than giving them some false hope that they have some semblance of control no matter what the situation, even if it's as simple as dinner.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of insulting, personally. Like, at the end of the day, this thing would frustrate the living shit out of me, right? Like, honestly, it's like, would you like to have macaroni and cheese and hamburgers, or would you like to have tacos? I'm like, I feel like tacos. Well, we need to make sure we use up that hamburger meat before it spoils.
It's like, excuse me.
Okay then. All right. Clearly,
you could have just told me that, and I wouldn't have had an issue.
I mean, I know what I would have done. I would have like, in that situation, I'd be like, all right, cool. So we're having mac and cheese and tacos. Like, meet you in the middle halfway. 50-50.
Goodness.
All right. Well, I think the next one was pretty also funny. It says, play stupid games, win nothing of value. How did X do this? Dated a month, asked me to just be friends, said sure, got mad I didn't fight. So it's like, okay, you act like an idiot, all right? You say things you don't really mean, and you expect a different outcome. Why? Like, why? Is the first thing that pops in my head. When I read this, it's like, this has got to happen to people all the time. And why? I mean, like, what are your thoughts on this? Oh boy.
As I've mentioned before, I'm not really a big fan of these situations, just because if you say one thing, but you actually mean another thing, if they don't get the second meaning, whether through non-verbal communication, cues from your body language, or verbal tics or whatever, why are you getting mad if they don't get the hidden meaning? It's why it's called a hidden meaning. Not everybody's gonna get it, and if they do, they know you pretty dang well.
And even then, I mean, there are subtleties to all this,
Mm-hmm.
There's maybe they didn't hear you entirely and only got part of the conversation.
Oh, I know that happens when we talk.
Yeah, like let's say you live in a busy house, and I hear the last part of what you said, and assume that was all of it.
Oh yeah, hard same. So it's just, if they can't hear you, or if something else happens, it's just, why are you getting mad if they only took the first meaning? Not everybody's gonna look for hidden meanings. That's a headache and a half, especially in my opinion.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And absolutely, Kyle is right. Run. Run in the complete opposite direction. Stupid games mean stupid people. And even if it's Mario Kart, you get the fuck out. You throw a blue shell at them, you bop them, you get the fuck out, all right? Like, that's just how it goes.
Blue shell for the win, especially if they're right at the finish line.
Hell yes. Hell yes. Anyways, honestly, like, I think that stupid games falls into the whole testing thing. It further cements some of the reasons why I think testing is kind of a bad thing for any relationship, period. All right? You're putting unnecessary strain in a situation that's only going to compromise your intentions. All right? You're going to sacrifice something important to you to do this. Is it worth the sacrifice, especially if it's not even necessary? All right?
Speaking of... Hi, Kyle! Wanted to make sure I said hi.
Hi, Kyle. Hi, Cal.
I appreciate all our viewers who return.
Yes, I appreciate.
As long as I am able to see your face in the chat, because that way I can actually give you a personal hello.
Yes, I appreciate all viewers, regardless if you're in the chat, though. Yeah, Rose is just, she's playing favorites right now. I respect everybody, absolutely everybody, except for the people who are stupid.
Oh my gosh! Way to make me up to be the bad guy. All right.
Hey, one of us had to be.
You know what? I'm shorter. I'm closer to hell. I can do it.
Okay, I'm just going to say this now. Owl people, I am joking.
Oh, I can see that.
Well, you can't see anything. What do you do?
Sure. I can still see you. You think you being slick.
Right, anyways.
This one's not one of the ones you wanted. That one was.
Yeah,
this one was.
Alright. So, I want to play games. He didn't play along. I've decided to blame him, so I can avoid personal responsibility for my actions.
God, I hate that so much.
Isn't that the truth? I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's a tactic. I mean, like, let's say, like, you're in a relationship and it's not going well. Maybe the relationship's gone on for a long period of time. Maybe it's only gone on for a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
Who's to say, right? But let's say you get you've reached the sunset of that relationship.
Okay.
And in that sunset, you've realized that this person is not the person that I want to spend the next sunrise with.
Mm-hmm.
So you look for a way out. And instead of being honest with the person and direct and respectful, you instead find some way to attack his or her personal, self in some way, or find something to pin on the other person and hold over them as an excuse for why the relationship ended. Rather than just being like adults and being like, listen, this has been great. I've enjoyed our time, but unfortunately, I do not want to continue. So this is where I leave you. I wish you all well. I hope we can still stay in communication to some extent. If you feel that way, if you don't, then you say your piece and you go on your way. You do not cripple people and attack them as you leave.
No. That's Joe.
Yeah, this is how people's feelings get hurt. This is how men go to therapy for decades, or women, it really happens to both sides, it can happen to both. But yeah, I mean, people, take relationships incredibly, seriously, and it's important that you be respectful because you have to respect the time that you spent in that relationship in the first place.
Mm-hmm. This is honestly how a lot of problems could just continue to happen and grow sometimes. It's one thing for some relationships to understand that maybe it's not you, maybe it is the other person, or maybe it's not the other person, it's you, or maybe it's both of you. But completely trying to avoid personal responsibility is not only a disservice to them, it's a disservice to you as a person. If I had to bring it more seriously than we already are.
And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it's not just a disservice to you and to the other person, but it's a disservice of every element of that relationship. It is every part that you liked, every part that you disliked. It's all of it. You're not, by not being able to take personal responsibility for whatever hand you had in that particular relationship, the point of learning and growing and developing as a person is completely lost. The moment that you go, he or she did everything. I did nothing. I was an innocent in this. It's like, no, you weren't. Like, what do you mean?
It's like if you have to convince yourself, it's kind of a scenario where something actually was on you.
Oh, yeah.
If you have to convince yourself of that, at least. If you just... Like, there are some relationships where it is mostly on one person. I said mostly, not all.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to understand, like, which parts were actually your fault, which parts were the other fault, and not just pin them on people just 'cause.
Yeah, I mean, I personally was in a very long relationship. And as much as I would love to say that I was innocent, I did nothing, absolutely nothing involved in that, the truth is that I absolutely had a huge part to play in why it didn't work out. Yeah? And so, like, it is incredibly important to make sure that not only do you go, hey, I did this and this happened, but you differentiate these things. Because at the end of the day, life isn't a game. And the things you do have consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do the right things, bad shit happens.
Mm-hmm.
And don't make that bad shit happen more often. Take responsibility.
Gosh, this sounds like an infomercial.
I know it is. It's called the infomercial Be a Better Person, brought to you by Justin and Rose. Be the
And yes,
best
we are.
version of you.
Yeah, and we are reading the comments, don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry.
Because I see those.
Yes, I see it. Oh, God, yeah. I don't want to be a Taylor Swift song. Like, ever. Like, no, thank you. Okay. Is this the one I liked a lot? No, it's
No,
coming up.
they're
It's
later,
coming up.
but it's
Okay.
coming up,
This one's pretty good, too.
Yeah.
The girl in the fireplace. No, shit like this pisses me off. My last girlfriend of 8 years left me on the day I was going out to buy a ring for her because she didn't feel wanted enough. It tore me apart inside, but I learned to move on. Kinda. A few months later, she texted me and told me that the reason she left me was because she wanted me to chase after her. I wanted to so badly, but I thought it over. I meant it was over. No one will. Grammatically at the end here, I'm a little but I think the passion and the point that this person is trying to convey is absolutely perfect. All right?
Yeah. I don't understand the very last sentence, but I know how the second to last sentence was supposed to be read.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, clearly shouting. What is
No,
but
the later part.
Oh.
The later part with the pausing and stuff.
But I thought it's over.
No, but I thought it's over meant it was over.
Yeah.
So it's just like the pause made it
Weird.
threw it off entirely.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. You're inserting the appropriate period that's not there normally.
No, you were the one inserting the period, actually.
No. I'm pointing at you. I'm blaming you for this.
Oh, are we on this one? Do I need to scroll up?
Clearly, I have not learned my lesson now. Okay, anyways.
Don't worry, guys. We're friends here.
Indeed. So, well, let's continue with this.
Yeah, but it's just that's so unfortunate, though. 8 years and completely down the drain because she wanted to test them? Really?
I don't think it was a test. I think this is a person who basically just wanted an excuse out. All right?
Like, I would say it was an excuse, but then she texts the person a couple months later? Like, if it was an excuse to get out, why come back?
Some people are vindictive.
I suppose,
I mean,
but
think about it like this, right? Some people like to have the idea of, I'm perfect, right? Then people around that particular person, after a particular breakup, tend to get real honest with that person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the iota of truth ends up being kind of pointed directly at them. And whether or not they decide to be forthright with the circumstances, or if they decide to be kind of malevolent and kind of, kick the shit around and not really, have a chance of self-inflection. Maybe they don't like who they are, what they look like, or what's going on in the relationship. So they start to attack the person, and if they weaken the person, then maybe they can crawl their way back.
Ugh.
And it's a very manipulative thing that I've seen kind of unfold in some dynamics, and I just think that it's kind of fucked up. I mean, clearly a person who is willing to buy a ring because the person did not feel wanted enough clearly shows that this person was extremely manipulative, and the person that they were with was an extremely kind-hearted person and very selfless.
I don't think they were buying the ring because she didn't feel wanted enough. It just happened on the same day.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Because it's like, she says my last girlfriend of 8 years left me on the day I was going out to buy a ring for her, and then she left me because she didn't feel wanted enough.
I know that, but think about it like this, right? There were things that happened that led up to that particular point. There could have been fighting, there could have been discussions, there could have been a whole bunch of things. Maybe there was just like the person knew the other girl really well, right?
Maybe.
And that particular person knows that if the person gets like quiet or does something that like it's bad. So clearly there was some form of communication going on that led up to this particular point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it happened at the same time just kind of meant that it was the person not doing enough quickly enough.
Mm.
In relationships, I kind of do this terrible thing, and I know I do it all the damn time, and it's like I can't help it. I just know it's a thing.
Okay.
I will not attempt to save a relationship until it is basically on the rocks. You know? Like it's like a ship in the middle of the ocean, it's sailing, it's doing great. I'm fine. I won't do a damn thing. The coast is approaching, it's approaching, it's approaching, it's approaching. Cool, we've smashed into the rocks on the coast. Now I'm like, let's turn the boat around.
Oh my gosh.
It's like every time I go into this, it's a little too late. And, you know, for me, I think it's because I'm bad at reading signals.
Yeah, hard same.
So.
Let's see. Kyle, some people like the feeling of power causing confusion gives them. Unfortunately, that is a thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely sociopathic tendencies in individuals whom definitely have a Dom complex.
Let's see. Host, I believe it is easier to play victim. They don't accept responsibility and blame others for the situation they find themselves in. Unfortunately, I see that being a thing too.
Far too often in today's society.
Mm-hmm.
Far too often.
Like, it just creates more problems playing victim because you're not going to learn, and then everybody, once they realize what happened,
Yeah.
You can't play victim forever. It's just not possible. Oh, somebody got deactivated. Alright.
So deactivated, what does that mean?
It's essentially they probably deleted their Tumblr post or something, or...
Yeah. Oh, that's a totally true thing. Someone in the shadows for bad stereotype for sitcoms, and that real women who do this exist. Oh my god, is that true? I mean, like, I don't want us to be like, oh, look, Hollywood, fuck you. You know, you are doing all this bad shit. But at the end of the day, all right, if you have a romantic comedy, okay, where you say, the guy is a pig, the guy is a monster, the guy is X, Y, Z, and everything in between, and he's just bad. And then at the very last second, the woman rushes in and suddenly turns this horrible person into a heartthrob. What the fuck message are you sending to people? Are you suggesting that everyone is everybody at least in this circumstance is a horrible person and they deserve to basically be treated like garbage until some woman decides that this person's worth something and whisks them off their feet and goes, we're in a couple now? It's like,
it's such a bad message.
Yeah, is that the message you really want to send?
It's like you shouldn't.
Yeah,
it's like.
It happens all the time, though. It happens all the time. I mean, I have sat through plenty of sitcoms. Okay? Plenty of sitcoms. And there's some good ones out there. I mean, I like How I Met Your Mother. It's a great sitcom. Chock full of bad stereotypes. I'm not going to lie. All right? Some that are real, you know, like, in some ways, I think, have some truth. And then there's lots of bad ones that are just totally not true. Like Crazy Eyes. But that's a whole other thing. But yeah, I think, just get away from that, Hollywood. If you're listening, if anyone's listening, stop doing that. Okay.
So this one is one of the ones you really wanted to read.
This is one of the ones I think is really important. All right, and we're gonna.
It's kind of long, so I'll try and scroll as best as I can.
But you don't scroll. Just let me read it.
No, like, if you're going to read the bottom part, because if you take a look at the preview screen, it cuts that stuff off.
Yeah, I got you. I know. Okay, so brought to you by EV Evolutions for Equality. It's not just women. I've dated women and guys who do this. I'm not the kind of person who fights for anybody. If they say they're leaving, of course I'll ask why and talk it through with them. But I'm not going to buy a bouquet and appear at the door at 3 a.m. to try to get something from them that they said they didn't want to give. The amount of times I've heard, if you really love me, you'd fight for me. And I've been like, well, if I really respected you and cared for you, then I'd want you to be happy rather than wanting you to do whatever it is that I want you to do. And they come out with, so what, you don't want to be with me? And I'm like, it's not about what I want. If I wanted somebody's watch and they didn't want to give me the watch, I wouldn't just take the watch. This is no different. And then they push and push, like, just tell me that you want to be with me and I'll stay. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I want you to do what will make you happy. And then I get called a heartless psychopath who never loved them and will never love anybody, ... So that's fun. Vape.
Right.
There's so much to unpack here.
Yeah, there's so much.
So much to unpack here. So, first of all, great job. Great job. That's
a mature way to handle it.
A super mature way to handle this. All right? Absolutely, this person respects themselves. 100%. Unequivocally, they respect themselves.
They wholly respect themselves and their partner.
Exactly.
If they're able to do this.
Yeah, they understand that a relationship, is a give and take, and it is a level of respect. And any person who goes, if you want me, you fight for me, does not care about you. They are entirely focused on themselves. And because of this, they're not in it for the long haul anyways. They're not good relationship material, if you want to call it that way. And this person clearly understands that. Because if you showed up with an expensive array of flowers at the wee crack of dawn or even before, and that was enough to satiate their desire to fix the problem that was going on in the relationship, then it means that the relationship was entirely created by them. Because who the hell, or what circumstance, I'll put this in the chat.
Okay.
To the chat, what circumstance could you ever see a relationship being fixed that truly was worth fixing, that was fixed by buying something and appearing at some random, time of the day or night, and that action in and of itself fixed the relationship in a permanent way? You laugh because it's like, it's fucking bullshit.
It just sounds more as if the relationship's more materialistic than it is based on something foundational and well structured. Because it shouldn't, if it's such a big deal that it's willing to be broken up over, then just one action like this, no matter how expensive or whatever it gets, it's going to keep happening. And if you don't get to the root of the problem, it just tells me that this is a temporary fix. It's going to break again. And until you get to the root, it's going to keep happening, which means if it continues, quote, being fixed with these temporary fixes, it's more materialistic than anything willing to keep, in my opinion.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I mean, there's a question. I know Jeff Bezos and a gold digger. That's pretty hilarious, honestly. Good job, Post. That's a high five, man. It's a high five. There's an analogy that I wanted to discuss in question 5 of this episode, but I want to.
Yeah, this is taking a lot longer.
Yeah, I want to talk about that particular thing at a later point, like in the episode. But I want everyone to think back to this particular post when I talk about the thing that's going to be referred to as the man store analogy. So, just remember this post when we talk about the man store analogy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to the next thing, unless you have anything else to add.
Not really. Just that I can actually respect somebody who goes ahead and goes through with this.
Absolutely.
Like, for the most part, I'm of the thought that if you really like somebody, if you really love them, you want them to be happy.
This is true.
That's just a fact for me, at least. If you really love them, you just want them to be happy. Doesn't have to be with you. Just you want them happy. If you want them to be upset, if you want them to be forced into a situation, that's not really love to me. That seems more like
it's domination,
possession, obsession type of scenario.
Yeah, I mean it's more than just that though. In a lot of ways, I think it's just a lack of respect.
Yeah,
that's what it boils down to. It's you don't want them. You want the idea of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that I think is kind of creepy when you think about people who
oh
do that
yeah,
kind of stuff.
And if you bring it to a far enough point, it's more dehumanizing than anything.
Yeah, I mean it starts treating people like property rather than, you know,
like an earlier post where a post was just like, what, don't you want to keep me? It's like, that creeps me out.
Yeah, it's like, keep you aren't something to hold.
It's like, you're not a object, you're a person. Please don't think of yourself as anything less than a person. Come on. Anyway.
Indeed. I mean, honestly, like, when I love somebody, I want what's best for them. Always. That's the goal. Number one. You know, it's not about facilitating any needs that I have. It's more like, is this person better off in this circumstance? And that's where I feel, at least, when it comes to this.
I think a little bit of what we just covered actually is part of this next post by Celtic Pyro. Do you want to read?
Sure. All right, Celtic Pyro. Just don't do this. This is bad. Communicate clearly. Some people will think you actually mean what you say, and others are struggling with social skills enough. If you want to stay, stay. Don't say no and expect someone to not respect your answer. Heck, why would you want someone to respect your boundaries?
To not respect your boundaries?
Yeah, not respect your boundaries. Thank you. Stuff like this ruins the legitimacy of no means no and me too as a movement. Yeah, this person got pretty well as well. I mean, honestly, I think that just between the last two posts, you get pretty much a solid response at every element of this particular post. You know, it's really comes down to respect, comes to being able to communicate properly, and it means having self-respect as much as respect for the other person. And understanding that actions actually have consequences. You cannot just do something and be like, well, it doesn't really matter.
This is not a video game where you can just reset at the last saved checkpoint, you know.
Yeah, and it's not like a business strategy where you just throw things at a wall until something sticks. It's like, that's not how relationships work either. So, not great. All right, I think this Armoretto Cowboy will be the last one we read.
Okay.
All right.
I'll try and be careful with the scrolling again.
Excellent.
Right.
So just scroll down to where it says me.
Yeah, where I have the mouse is where I'll start. Like, as soon as you get to that line, I'll be scrolling, so it gives you a area
pause
of where to look at. Yeah.
Okay. There was a girl I was in love with who pulled this. When I kept trying, she labeled me a creepy, clingy stalker and blocked my number. I moved on, ended up getting back with an ex and got married. 2 years after she blocks my number, she hits up a mutual friend to see if I'm single or not, and then goes ballistic to find out I'm married. Later, she gives me shit for it and asks why I didn't fight for her. Actual argument verbatim. Me, what the fuck did you want me to do? You called me a stalker. Her, I was playing hard to get. Me, you blocked my number. What was I supposed to do? You're an idiot for playing games. If you wanted me, all you had to do was say yes. Her, no, you're the idiot. A block only lasts 3 months. You should have hit me up when the block was over. Me, you can't be serious. Her, I am. Why didn't you wait for me? Me, I'm happily married now. Her, well, you can get her divorced. Me, bye. This person is absolutely 100% stupid as all hell. There's nothing else that pops in my head. Stupid. Idiot is not strong enough of a word to describe. Idiot People can be playful idiots. I can be an oblivious idiot sometimes. 100%.
I know I am.
Kyle, your message redacted.
Yeah, I was in the middle of reading that I was scrolling, and then it just disappeared, and I wanted to read it.
Yeah, okay. Kyle, share with us.
Sure.
I don't mind. We'll go through it. Don't worry about it. Do it. All right. So.
But I don't even know whether this is obviously beyond sheer stupidity. This seems, would you say it's psychopathic or sociopathic? I still get it mixed up in my head as to definition-wise, because the fact that she can legitimately go.
Sociopaths have an awareness of emotions, they just choose not to care about it.
Okay.
Psychopaths don't.
Okay.
There's a block.
Okay.
That doesn't allow them to understand.
Because the last 3 lines of this exchange are just throwing up so many red flags, because
sociopathic behaviors.
Okay. Because the whole I'm happily married now, without even thinking about it, well, you can get divorced. Like, seriously? I'm happily married, but you want me to divorce anyway? What type of response is that? You definitely, whoever this person is, definitely does not respect the OP.
Oh, no.
If they can just say that.
I mean, just think about the way in which this conversation goes down. If this is literally the actual conversation, right?
Yeah.
Then, in the span of what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 messages. She goes from calling him a stalker to divorce your wife so you can be with me. It's like, what the fuck, right?
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean,
completely had a balloon.
Before we go right into this, I want to read Kyle's message. It says, Kyle says, I was saying some guys might be playing games because they don't know how to process their emotions. Okay, yeah, you're absolutely right. Some guys do that. I think it's not even a guys thing. I think it's a people thing. Mm-hmm. I think some people, like get into relationships and they're not socially mature. And because they're not socially mature, they want to find some way to feel good because they can't reckon the problem. They can't, I guess, tackle, a better way to put it, tackle the problems of the relationship that happened and their responsibility in what happened and their, what they actually hold on to. Because a lot of times when a relationship goes bad, people want to point fingers and place blame, and they don't want to have blame on them because that doesn't make you feel good. And also, it kind of potentially could make you look bad for future relationships. So, people who aren't able to go, okay, I did this, and this right, this, and this wrong. In the future, I'll know this is not how I handle this. This is how I handle this to do things better. And so I think that at the end of the day, most people typically just don't, or that do this are too immature to recognize their actual actions involved in that particular dynamic. And because of that, they end up, sending it outwards. Do you think an injured inner child has a role in these games? I think so. Yeah, I mean, like, if you were the child who was left out of games, right? Let's say, like, there was 10 children that all like to play games together, and you're the odd man out. You're going to be constantly looking for attention. Yeah, this happens to women all the time. I mean, literally all the time. I have probably 6 or 7 friends who are female, and that are like this, and I'm friends with them because I'm a nice guy. But I mean, honestly, like, I can see their behavior. All right, I can see and identify some of the things that are going on to cause that, and they're essentially all looking for attention. I mean, they jump onto YouTube, they jump onto Twitter, and they jump onto Instagram, and they throw their posts up, and then they get happy one day when they get a whole bunch of likes or some sort of postings and things like that. That essentially put them in a positive light. And then if one negative thing happens, it just shatters them. And they go into, how dare this person do this, and it's like, no, hold on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that it has to do with the fact that those kids, they were not, they didn't get attention when they were younger. And so as adults, that's the thing they seek because it's what they lacked when they were young. So yeah, Kyle, you're absolutely like on the right track with that.
I've got an add-on for that.
Sure.
So this is with the whole injured inner child being a result of being left out of these games and wanting attention. Mm-hmm. Do you think they could have potentially let's say if they were the result of a union which broke down,
Okay.
such as their parents or whatever are having these sorts of scenarios, do you think that might also influence them, make them, depending on how long
Absolutely.
it happens, they could think
Absolutely.
it's, quote, normal?
Absolutely. I would say that there is a lot of evidence to suggest that if you were a female and you are in the care of your father
Okay.
and you have an absent mother in that particular role,
Okay.
you are 9 times more likely to demonstrate traits that would make you be more masculine in your approach. So you'll be more of a tomboy kind of like appearance. And you are probably just as likely to also be constantly seeking affirmation for the things that you do in your life. Meaning essentially attention. Like you're going to be trying to get attention. And anytime that anything challenges your sense of self, rather than being able to look internally and self-actualize yourself to some extent, or take responsibility for your mistakes, or look at something in a serious way, regardless if it's positive or negative, instead you are going to immediately turn and fight against that. Now, if you are a guy and you get taken away from your dad and you are with your mom and you have an absent father role figure, right?
All right.
Well, now you get stuck with all these feminine traits that you don't really handle circumstances forthrightly. Instinctually, you would probably be more akin to trying to, but you lack the ability to do so. And so you might find yourself more frustrated and more reserved. And that's where the quiet types tend to develop. So I'm not going to say that there is a necessarily this creates this, which creates this outcome. I just would say that if this happens, there is a high degree chance that this also will happen.
Okay. And just before I forget, are there any books that people could use to read some of this information? Any of the data?
Absolutely.
Stories? Like, do you have any of those?
Okay, there's there's a few. So before we all right, so one of the books in which you could read is forgive me for a second. Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life is a book that I think is pretty decently well written. Jordan Peterson's a pretty well read guy. And I would say he's a pretty smart guy when it comes to being able to talk about a diverse set of psychological issues.
Doesn't he have like 500 hours on YouTube or something?
500 plus hours. He's got a crazy amount of content. But I mean, at the end of the day, like that book probably would point you in the right direction when it comes to this particular thing. There are a couple books that are going to be we're gonna mention later, but one of them is AREN Clarey's book of Bachelor Pad Economics, as well as the I think it's called the Book of Numbers, which essentially is just a collection of data from a diverse set of things, ranging from U.S. Census data to online dating applications. To just divorce statistics and things like that are collected from county court systems from around the country, and that kind of highlights some of the other things we'll be discussing a little bit later that could be used for information.
Mm-hmm. I'll try and see if I can put these named books into the description for anybody who's interested, if people are interested.
I'd also highly recommend trying to find any book. Any one of the what we call the classical psychoanalysts or psychologists, just in general, any of their theories of what they kind of felt like life was all about. I would say Freud, as much as I disagree with much of what he said, there's a lot of things that are kind of interesting notes that get you thinking. Now, I think he's wrong about lots of things, so I want that you don't want to sound like I'm promoting him, but I think that like if you have a genuine interest in the actual subject, reading his writing really helps. If you read up on Adler's great at being able to kind of discuss certain key points. I think that if you were to look up anything on Piaget's cognitive development theories are fantastic, but I think some of his personal writings are actually just as good, if not better. Honestly, you can shoot holes in a theory. What he had to say, I think, will give a sense of meaning. Anything written, by just about any of them, I would say the behavioral analysts any one of those guys is going to be able to give you a great detail, background, and understanding of why biologically some things work the way they do. So I'd say, if you care, read into those particular people. And if you can't find a specific thing, then shoot us an email and be like, hey, I want to know about this specific thing and I want to read up on it. Can you suggest a book? I'd be happy to find a book that is going to exactly answer what you're looking for. Because I probably read it, I just, off the top of my head, I don't know.
Speaking of contacting us, before I forget, because I will forget, again, next Wednesday is our Q&A. So if you've got questions, feel free to send them in. Well, please send them in, actually.
Yeah, send in questions. I mean, we actually technically haven't even received any questions from anybody just yet. So I'm starting to wonder if people actually even listen or even care.
Oh my.
I'm sad over here.
No, we just want questions.
Yeah, I got a birthday coming up, and it's going to be a lonely birthday.
Oh.
So send in a question. Cheer me up.
Also send gifts and cute
No,
animals.
No, don't do that. I swear to God, don't do that.
But you like the cute adorables.
Okay. No one's supposed to know that, Rose. Thanks for calling me out. Anyways, so let's go ahead and let's move on to the statement/question stuff.
Sure. I can get rid of that for now.
In the context of what we were kind of thinking about when it came to overall, the article, we kind of realized that there's a whole bunch of stuff that we kind of wanted to talk about. And those things kind of created kind of like a pseudo rant. And I didn't want to rant at you guys about certain things, so instead we kind of we're going to say a couple bits about some stuff, and hopefully you guys find it entertaining. And if not, then, well, shit.
That's one way to say it.
Yeah, exactly,
Alright.
Alright, so without further ado, you want to throw up the first question?
Boom! Why is risk-taking important, and what are some of the consequences of taking risks? For the most part, for almost all of these settings, we've already said something. So these are more detailed talks.
Yeah. Okay, so why is risk-taking more important? Is that what I'm understanding? Or what are the consequences of it? What exactly are you trying to get across?
It's saying, why is risk-taking important just in these sorts of scenarios, or maybe in general if you want to bring it to them, and what are some of the consequences of... What are you doing? What did you just do?
Nothing.
And what are some of the consequences of taking such risks? That is so showing up on the preview, goodness gracious. What have you done?
I have destroyed everything.
Yeah.
Illusion is gone.
Thank God I fit it to the actual screen here. Yep, I just saw it in the preview.
Hey! Anyways, so I think the importance of taking a risk is that you're not going to get anywhere without taking a risk. All right? If you want your life to get better, if you think that doing nothing and just kind of letting things kind of happen and not taking any actions in the right direction is going to get you anywhere, I would say you're probably mistaken. I think things do happen at random, so yay for that. I mean, if you get successful, then awesome. But I think at the end of the day, if you want to get somewhere, you're going to have to put some effort, and in order to put effort, you're going to have to take a risk. And I think the consequences of not taking risks essentially boil down to you get nowhere. And so, you're going to go ask somebody out, right? So let's say in the consequence, the guy in the article, right? He took a chance. And he was like, hey, I'm going to ask this girl out. And this person said no, all right? Now, if he had risked pursuing it and he got a harassment charge, that could have some serious consequences on the rest of his life. I mean, you get hit with some sort of I would say restraining order. That could be a big problem for employment. Because what happens if you want to get a job somewhere and you have to travel to different places? Well, if this person has a restraining order, then you're kind of shit out of luck if you're going over there. You'd be breaking the law. So, I mean, at least in those particular circumstances, I think it's probably ill-advised.
Yeah, the whole risk-taking important. I definitely agree that it's one of the more quicker ways to try and get somewhere. Don't you dare. Because if you're just remaining passive, it's it's the quote safe option, but it's also again, a stagnant option. Not much is going to do anything or go anywhere because it's just going through the motions.
Sure.
If you're going to do something big, something that's going to change your life, you have to take that risk, whether it be asking somebody out, applying for a program that could potentially be international, even sometimes just moving is also a risk depending on where you go.
Yeah,
So it handles a bunch of scenarios, not just dating as we're focusing here.
Well, I'm not even saying dating per se. I'm saying like the whole dynamic between gender roles at the end of the day is what this kind of boils down to. It's like there was a certain point in time where a guy was expected to behave in a certain way, and if he did, then the woman could reciprocate and show interest in some way, and that's kind of how relationships began. Now, we've gotten away from this courting culture, and instead it's more like instant gratification, and so it's kind of like if you push, you're not going to get what you want. You need to kind of get a quick answer. And so some women are under this delusion, on part kinda because of Disney, if you ask me personally, of the fairy tale ending, the Prince Charming kind of thing, and isn't going to be really ready for what the real world looks like when certain things happen. So if a guy, decides, hey, I'm gonna take this risk, I'm gonna ask this person out. Well, if that person if the person says no, like in the article, and the guy continues on, well, that girl has every right in the world to say harassment, to say stalker, whatever, right? And what is the guy gonna do? Oh, I was just trying to ask her out, I was trying to woo her. It's like, that shit don't work no more. Thank you, feminists.
Okay. Not even in the original definition of the word. More the extreme talkers and loud ones nowadays. Gosh.
So, I mean,
want to move on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hold on.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if we really have time to do the picture thing.
Oh, we can try.
We can try? Hold on.
We can try.
Definitely not because the live stream pictures are so...
Sure, that's fine. Let's just go to the question then.
Oh gosh.
What are some of the reasons someone might take risks from multiple perspectives? So what do you think, Rose?
One of them might be to, again, progress, make your life better in some way, shape, or form, whether it be asking somebody out, going for a certain job, moving to a certain area, depending on your life. So, taking these risks, it's faster than really staying stagnant, because, again, can't really do much if you're just staying put.
Okay.
So they might take some risk because they do want to change their life in some way, shape, or form, whether that be positive or negative. They're hoping for the positive, but hopefully some part of them is prepared for the negative. Hopefully. So that might be one reason. Another person might be more passive, because I think I've mentioned before that sometimes the risks outweigh the benefits. It just depends on that person's thought process of what they want to try and get out of this risk, and then thinking on... depending on how optimistic or pessimistic or one of those istics.
I mean, it's like, how good is that job? How hot is that person?
Yeah, it's just like sometimes the risks outweigh the benefits and sometimes the benefits outweigh the risks. It's a mind game, a personal one, because they're the ones thinking, like, what can they get out of this? What can they not? And yeah, it sounds materialistic, but it's just one of the ways of thinking about these types of scenarios, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I think about the multiple perspectives part, right? I first thing I want to go to is obviously jump to the guy's perspective, but I think too often is it too easy to go down that particular road, to start looking at it from solely from that perspective. I think it's equally important to look at the woman's perspective, which might shock some people, but I think that there's two sides to every story, and there are 2 points to every situation at bare minimum. And I think that when it comes down to the kinds of things, I think that because women are constantly being bombarded all the time by all the guys and all the opportunities,
Speaking of which.
I think that it creates a situation where they either have an oversaturation and they don't have the ability to discern what's going on, and they get either sidetracked or they just make a choice at random and just go, we're going that, and damn the risks. I think that guys used to have this problem. I really do. I think that in the 60s, 50s, 60s, you could see plenty of instances where that, in fact, was definitively the case. You could really say that. And just look at any political figure from that particular time frame and see how many of them had affairs. Enough said.
Could be even just based on having the life experiences, because if you did take so many risks and you got rejected so many times, you might just have enough and decide to do the safe route because you've taken that risk a lot of times. Get rejected enough times, it's not going to seem worth it anymore.
I mean, sometimes the juice is not worth the squeeze. I mean, sometimes that's the way it is.
Yeah, so it just depends on the life and perspectives and way of thinking you've got from your environment.
Yeah.
All right. Bum-ba-da-dum. Communication or miscommunication. Does the intent behind the words matter?
Yeah, I think it does. I think that if you understand a person, okay, then you're going to understand how they're going to approach circumstances, and you're going to understand how they're going to present information. So the way in which you choose to communicate is incredibly important, because a person who really cares about another person is going to already know what they're trying to say, even if the words they're trying to say don't make much sense. And that happens in every type of situation where you know someone for a long period of time, whether it be the workplace, a whole bunch of friends, or like a girlfriend, husband, and wife situation. Like, it doesn't matter. If you know someone for long enough, you already understand the intention behind it. But if you don't have that kind of connection, then your intention should matter, even if a miscommunication occurs. Because at the end of the day, if you were trying to say this, and it came out, let's say, not what you wanted, maybe it was very bad, and it was in no way what you intended, and you can communicate that that was not how you intended, then the effort of that particular thing should have merit.
If it even gets to that point, because
that's true.
Hopefully you would get the chance to explain yourself, but we know that there are unfortunately some people in this world that take things way too seriously for their own good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you should be able to, if you say the wrong thing, it shouldn't be the end of the world unless it's like really offensive. But even then, you should be able to at least explain yourself.
Certainly.
This isn't some sort of witch hunt.
No.
Nah.
No witch hunt.
Now I just want to play that witch hunter game. Jeez. Okay. Let's see. Your turn.
Okay. Pursuing dating and how courting has changed before smartphones and after in the context of social media.
Oh my goodness. So I don't have we were talking about this earlier and you had a more descriptive story about the before and after.
Oh yeah.
Because I grew up with a lot of these technologies in my life, so.
Oh yeah.
I'm not too knowledgeable about the before bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you want to explain the difference or not.
You want me to say it first?
Sure.
Okay.
Might give some better context for whatever the heck I say.
Okay. Fair enough. So basically, all right, I'm probably going to date myself a little bit here, but I started dating just before really smartphones started to take off. So about 3 or 4 years. All right. So I started dating probably about 2003-ish. And I think the first smartphone came out in like 2007, 2008, something like that. And so dating kind of like, I mean, you could think about it on movies. Like if you watched any movie that was made in the 80s, there's a lot of good ones. Guys just kind of came up to girls and kind of just like, you know, say something funny or something cute, something witty, you know, and you would get an opportunity to befriend them and potentially things would evolve from there. I would say that Hollywood version is an idealized version of what really took place more often than not, from what I saw. And I would say that guys got burned a hell of a lot more than they succeeded with those kinds of things. But I think that kind of portrayal is exactly kind of how it went down. Then you get the smartphones. And smartphones add a whole different element to the whole situation. And that's because there's this notion that you have a small community before smartphones to be able to date. So let's say that like you lived in a town, let's say of maybe like 1,000 or 2,000 people. It's a small town. All right. Your dating pool is probably kind of small. It's somewhere between a couple hundred people probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't really have that many opportunities, but now you have social media out there. You had MySpace, Facebook, all these, emergent social media stuff. And with those social media stuff, you had access to talk to a more diverse set of people from a larger, certain area. So maybe this girl who only could have dated 400 or 500 people at most in, say, her small town, now has access to most of the United States, if they're in the United States. Hell, maybe even the world. And so her ability to pick and choose what she, who she'd want to date goes up exponentially. And I think that's the big problem. There's this idea that's put forth in the AREN Clarey's book, and there's also another book, I forgot the name, but I will definitely mention it in the next episode, if anyone cares, that essentially talks about something called the sexual marketplace. It's the idea that men and women kind of fit on this kind of chart. And the idea is that essentially women, when they hit 18, are at like their peak value. And then as they goes down, they slowly kind of like go down until they get to like their mid to late 30s, 40s range, whatever, and then it just kind of flatlines, right? And men kind of start at the bottom, and they kind of have to work their way up to a certain point, and then they kind of cross at some point with women, and then it continues on, and then eventually it dips and falls off again. Okay, that's the general gist behind the sexual marketplace kind of idea. And the thing is that girl, like I was talking about before, was in a certain metric, a certain value. Roughly, let's say, 500 people. Her marketplace value was, say, at some point, and all the guys kind of could fit in that range. Now, all those 500 guys now have to contend with every guy in the world that she talks to.
Mm-hmm.
And so the chances that any one guy is going to get with her is diminished. Because she isn't going to pick any regular Joe more often than not. She's going to try and find the best opportunity for her. The most attractive guy, the most successful guy, the best looking guy situation, right? And then I say attraction and not looking because they are different. Which some people don't recognize. But yeah, there's an analogy that I wanted to kind of discuss that has to do with this. Do you think this is the appropriate time to talk about it?
With the current time, I would say so, unless you want me to do a quick comment about this before you get into the story.
Give me the comment first.
Okay. So, the comment, just taking the entirety of the changes into account, it also kind of just changes the dating scenario, the dating scene, because like you mentioned before, they had a small select pool of people before in the past, and it was more in-person, more personal, kind of slower.
Mm-hmm.
With the invention of the smartphones and all of the social media, it's now much faster. It does work in some scenarios, but it's much faster, like with some of those dating apps like Tinder, Grindr, whatever. You just swipe left, swipe right, da-da-da-da-da. It has a much faster scenario, and a whole crap ton more gets done because of the fact that you can just text or email at certain times. You don't have to wait for like postage for handwritten letters, which is an old thing. Okay, not that old, but it feels old.
It's even older than me, so
yeah, so it's like it's an old thing. But like those were part of the old ways of courting.
John Doe letters.
Yeah.
Or Johns, or things like that.
But now with the use of technology, it's a lot faster, a lot quicker. It's just so much different for the dating scene, and just sometimes the old ways of dating that is mentioned in these movies, sometimes they just don't work anymore, but people still think they do, and that causes a disconnect of expectations. Like, some people expect one thing, but other people who have watched a different set of scenarios and grew up with a different set of technology think it's a different thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, like in the terms of the particular Tumblr post at the beginning of this episode, all right, I think that if you were going to defend the Tumblr post person, right?
Okay.
You could definitely say that this person bought into the Disney fairy tale of white knight and chivalry and all this other stuff that like they're constantly promoted in those types of movies.
Yeah.
And the guy, very much being a guy who's been rejected plenty of times, was like, this is the real world. This is how fast things are. This person isn't interested. Then I need to move on because I need to respect this person's boundaries.
Yeah.
I think the guy in that circumstance was probably very mature. And I think the woman in that circumstance was not. Which meant that even if that relationship had turned into something, it probably wouldn't have ended very well. So maybe it was for the better.
Maybe. Like, as much as we call it stupid, we can at least try to explain some bits of it. We're not just calling it stupid because we just think it's stupid. It's...
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, all right? And I think that, like, you Rose, you're a woman. I want your honest opinion when it comes to this particular thing. So I'm going to go over the analogy.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me,
Sure.
is this true or not? All right. So before I go into the analogy, I want to know let everyone know that this analogy is not an analogy that I came up with. It's an analogy that I heard from a popular podcast called the Fresh and Fit podcast. It's a great podcast to watch trashy women get basically roasted. It is hilarious at times and depressing at other times. I'm not going to lie. So it's not something I'm like, yeah, let's go watch it all the time. You watch it, and then at the end of about a week of watching it, if you spend that long, you will literally hate women. So don't do this.
It's like, be prepared for a lot of roasting.
Yeah, a lot of roasting, a lot of crazy things that you wouldn't expect, right?
So much.
But let me get into this analogy, okay?
Okay.
So the analogy is that when you're born, a man and a woman are both given a ticket, all right?
Okay.
The man's ticket says you can redeem this when you become 35 and you make 6 figures or more. The woman says when you turn 18, you can redeem this ticket at any time. What does this ticket provide? This ticket provides your choice of any man or woman of your choosing. Okay?
Okay.
So if you're, let's say for heterosexual men, we'll say that this ticket provides you a woman that you're choosing, and this ticket provides a woman, a man of her choosing.
Okay.
When you get your ticket and you approach the building, we're going to be talking about this in the frame of a woman. A woman approaches the building, all right? The woman reads a sign, says that this building has multiple floors. If you choose to continue on to the next floor, you cannot go back unless a notation says otherwise, okay? Something says that you can turn around, okay?
Okay.
So, person walks in, person gets greeted, and is presented with all these fabulous average Joes.
Okay.
All right? All these guys, normal guys, they make, $50K, maybe $30K, something like that, right? They're not nothing too special to look at. Average guy. Woman looks around, be like, these are nice, but let's see what's on the next floor.
Okay.
So she goes to the next floor. And when she gets to the next floor, she's presented with a sign. The sign says, you cannot go back to the previous floor. Okay. And when she gets to this floor, she sees a few decent-looking guys. Maybe they're like some 6s or 7s. Maybe they're 5s, but they make a little bit more money than the average. Maybe they make like $55,000 to $60,000 a year.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy. And the person looks around and goes, I'm going to go to the next floor. I kind of like, let's see what's on the next floor. She gets to the third floor. Sorry. She goes to the third floor and she looks around, and there are 7s and 8s all over the place. Really good-looking guys. Maybe on the fitter side of life. Making a good kind of money, have good careers. Really, these are the kind of guys you take home to your family. All right, these are the kind of guys that oh wow, this is a good guy. This is a good guy. And she looks around and she's like, these guys are really great, but I want to see what's on the next floor.
Okay.
And so she goes up to the next floor, and then the floor says you can't go back down, just like all the other floors said. And she's surrounded by 8s and 9s and guys who make 6 figures plus, great-looking guys. Any person would be lucky to have any one of these guys. Men on that first and second floor wish they could be like the guys on this floor. All right, they aspire to be like that. And she looks around, and she's like, really, like she thinks, but she's like, you know what? There's another floor up there. I'm gonna go to the next floor.
Okay.
All right. She goes up to the next floor, and she's greeted by a sign that says, "Congratulations, you have met the last floor of the building. There are no men on this floor. You must leave the building now." It's because women have unrealistic expectations about what they really want. What a person will be happy with and what a person expects are often very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
What will make you happy typically is a person who's going to respect you, a person who's going to take care of you, a person who's going to be kind and compassionate to you. And that's really about it. If a person is attractive and makes enough money, those are the things that should be good for you. But many women, not all, I don't want to say all, and I'm not saying all, I'd say there's many women who I know who fit into the category who would go all the way up to the 6th floor or to the 5th floor and be like, "I'm done. That's it." Before the man, before I ask you about this, I'll explain the man story. The man gets presented the same thing, right?
Okay.
And I don't think there's a single guy who'd get to the 3rd floor and be like, "I'm moving on to the next floor." Not a single guy. Because I think a millionaire will date an attractive person who works at McDonald's. I think that a guy cares more about a girl's looks and a girl's attitude and her values than anything else. And I think that women are more materialistic. It's about how much money is that guy making? You know, how does that guy gonna make me look? How much status does he have? You know, these things matter so much. Most guys have a list, 3 or 4, maybe 5 things long of things they want in a woman. There are women who have thousands of things on a list. I mean, there was a Steve Harvey did an interview with a woman whom had, I think it was like 300 different requirements to date her, and she was an average-looking girl. So it's like, my goodness, like there are some things that I have problems with. So, what is your take about the thing? Do you think that you would go to the 6th floor or 5th floor?
As much as I'd like to say I'd be happy with one of the lower floors, instinctually, culturally, life experiences, who knows, I might be tempted to fall into that trap. I don't know. Like, as much as I'd like to think I'm a good person, I might fall into it. I'd like to not. I'd like to think I'd have enough self-control to, like, stay happy with, like, the lower floors and stuff. But depending on my life at that point, who knows? I'd hope to think that's the case for at least some people. I know there are quite a number of people that are more materialistic than others and would absolutely just head up to the top floor immediately without looking around. But of course there are going to be some exceptions where they will actually maybe be happy with, if we're going with the analogy on the lower floor. And the same could be said for probably people on the male spectrum.
Oh, I'm 100%. But I would say that if you took 10 guys and you took 10 women, okay, I would be shocked.
Okay.
If more than half of the women, even half the women chose guys that were not on any floor. I honestly believe that at least half out of a group of 10 would go all the way to the top.
I can see why you think that.
And
it just depends on, like, life experiences and who you've known.
Yeah, and I think that most guys, especially the guys that I've known, I think there's only, out of 10, 2 would go to the top.
Yeah, it honestly depends a lot on life experiences, the people you hang around with, your expectations because of your life, and even, like, culturally will help out too.
Yeah, I mean, that's 100% true.
So as much as I'd like to think that there are going to be some people, including myself, that will be happy on the 4th floor and lower, depending on what life throws at me,
Okay, I'm just going to throw this way here, Rose.
What up?
You would jump right to the 4th floor. You were like, not even like 2 or 3, no, 4th floor. You're like,
I said and lower.
Yeah, but that's not the point, though. It's all about intention. Hypergamy at work here.
Hyper what now?
Hypergamy.
Don't know what that means. Anyway.
it's hypergamy is the notion that a woman will trade up or will only want the absolute best. Will always be seeking the bigger, better deal.
Mm.
In a nutshell. I mean, I'm doing a really rough explanation of it, but that's the gist behind it.
Yeah. So I'd like to think I'd be a good person, but I know myself to know that I'm not. So.
I'm gonna tell you this right now.
What?
100%. I get the floor too. I'm like, all right, I'm finding a hot Asian girl. I'm here. That's it. That's who it is. 100%.
So yeah. It's like I know enough about myself to know that, like, as much as I'd like to be a good person, I'm probably not.
Okay.
I'm just happy I'm not in denial about it.
Hey, that's true. That's at least you're honest. That's like you're already beating out a great portion of the population who isn't going to be honest with themselves.
Good. Like, if you can't be honest with yourself, there's no way in heck you're being honest with other people.
That is very true. That is very true.
And I know I'm calling out a couple of things, but that's just like...
You're like, I'm calling people out. No,
it's just the truth to me, at least. Like, if you can't be honest with yourself, how can you, like, truly 100% be honest with other people?
That's true, but you're chucking live grenades into certain...
Yeah, I know,
like,
but we've been chucking grenades all day. I think I can chuck a couple more.
Oh, wow, all right. Like, we haven't bombed enough shit yet.
Okay, which one do you want to go into next? Because it's a couple minutes past 10:30.
You know,
so,
I think...
what do you want?
I think what we'll do is we're just going to end on question 11. Let's just go ahead and end on question 11. I think that this has been a good look at this particular article. Little Tumblr post, I should say, with some fun little banter. I hope this was enjoyable for everybody. And so we got one last question. Questions for the audience. Hopefully you guys are, been paying attention. And essentially it says, have you thought of doing something similar to the scenario from the main Tumblr post?
Doesn't even have to be even the same scenario, but just something similar. Whether, if I have to give you a concrete example, that's kind of what I consider mundane. Food. Food. Like the response by Ron Rule, steak or pizza? I said pizza, but I wanted steak. Hello. Like, it's just something that doesn't actually mean anything by the end of the day. To me, food is food. I just have a preference for some food over the others.
But you won't vocalize it.
Yeah, not all the time. It just depends on the last time I did this was, I think, in high school, where I said one thing versus the thing I actually wanted because of expectations, and I wasn't as comfortable with the particular group. I can't even remember what the choices were, to be honest. But I'd have to imagine, for one, I wasn't exactly as self-aware of what I wanted and how confident I was in my own self as to whether or not I'd be considered selfish or not. So that's one quick, concrete example.
I mean, I gotta say also with like I'm definitely guilty of this. Like, I've sent people on errands before, and I'm like, man, it'd be really great if they brought back this one thing I really wanted. And like, sometimes, in rare circumstances, it happens. They're like, yeah, I've got it. I'm like, yeah, you
mind reader.
You knew what I wanted. But more often than not, I am, if I didn't speak up, I missed out, and I think that's the way it should be. Well, it's been a great episode, and I just want to say thank you for hanging out, watching, and please send in your questions to the show. I look forward to them. It's something that I really like, and so we'll see you all in the next one. Have a great rest of your night. Later.
We bid you adieu. Have a good night, everybody.